Subscribe to Atten Recounts right now if you want to understand how the desperate necessity of total war created a home defense strategy so effective that it is still used by elite security experts today. In the early 1940s, as the threat of invasion loomed over Europe and civil order was stretched to its breaking point, ordinary citizens had to rethink the concept of a front door. Without the luxury of modern electronics, they turned to the laws of physics and the science of human psychology to create the forgotten WWII home defense trick that still stops intruders instantly. This guide is not about expensive gadgets, but about the tactical use of common materials to strip an intruder of their greatest advantage, which is silence. We are going to explore the mechanical precision of kinetic alarms and acoustic barriers that remain far more reliable than any digital sensor ever could be. This is a deep dive into the grit and reality of historical home defense for serious historians and survivalists who understand that true security is built on physics and preparation. The strategic use of passive acoustic signaling transformed common household glass into an inescapable early warning system. During the height of the Second World War, the British Home Guard taught civilians that an intruder's most powerful weapon is the assumption of a clear path. To counter this, families developed the glass barrier technique, which involved placing highly resonant and brittle materials in transition zones, such as windowsills and door frames. The logic was simple yet effective, because the high-frequency sound of breaking glass is something the human brain is biologically wired to recognize even in a deep sleep. By placing thin glass jars or even ceramic plates just behind a curtain or leaning against a sliding window frame, a homeowner could ensure that any attempt at entry would result in a sudden and jarring noise. This would not only alert the occupants, but would also psychologically shock the intruder into an immediate flight response, because their anonymity had been instantly destroyed. To apply this today, you can place a few small glass containers on the sill of any ground floor window. When the window is moved, the glass falls and shatters on the floor, providing an unmistakable signal that your perimeter has been breached. Granular surface materials were engineered to create an audible footprint that no intruder could suppress. In the rural landscapes of 1940s, Europe residents utilized crunched approaches as a first line of defense against nighttime reconnaissance. Unlike soft grass or packed earth, which can be navigated silently, a thick layer of loose and sharp-edged gravel creates a unique crunching sound that carries for significant distances in the silence of a blackout. The science behind this involves the shifting of irregular stone surfaces against one another, which produces a sound frequency that is impossible to dampen even with soft-soled shoes. Wartime residents would often rake this gravel smooth every evening to serve as a visual record of any movement. For a practical modern application, you should replace soft mulch or dirt paths near entry points with 3 to 4 inches of pea gravel or crushed stone. This creates a permanent and maintenance-free alarm system that cannot be bypassed by cutting wires or jamming signals. It forces an intruder to commit to a loud entry before they even reach your door. Precariously stacked metallic objects leveraged gravity to create high-volume alarms without electricity. When the threat level increased and families needed a more aggressive alert, they utilized stacked tension alarms inside their entryways. This involved stacking light and metallic objects like tin cans or metal trays in a precarious formation directly against a door that opened inward. The physics of this trick relied on the principle of gravitational collapse, where even a fraction of an inch of movement would cause the stack to lose its centre of gravity. The resulting cascade of metal was far more startling than a single thud, because it produced a prolonged and chaotic clatter. People often placed heavy marbles or dry beans inside the tins to increase the duration of the noise as they rolled across the floorboards. To replicate this today, you can use a stack of empty soda cans or a heavy metal cookie sheet balanced on the door handle. The moment the door is breached, the cascading metal creates an immediate and jarring noise that provides the precious seconds needed to reach a defensive position or call for help. The tactical manipulation of interior terrain turned familiar hallways into inescapable traps. Wartime home defense often focused on the inside advantage, which meant knowing the terrain of the home better than any outsider ever could. Families would identify specific floorboards that creaked and leave them unrepaired to act as natural sensors. In areas where the floor was too quiet, they would apply a light coating of common furniture wax or even soap to hide traffic corners to create a slip hazard. For an intruder moving in total darkness, a sudden loss of traction causes a reflexive gasp or a heavy stumble, which are both loud enough to wake a household. Furthermore, they would strategically place low-profile furniture or trip hazards in the middle of hallways where a resident knew to walk around them, but an intruder would inevitably strike. You can apply this knowledge by keeping your home in a tactically familiar state where entry points are obstructed by heavy or noisy objects that you can navigate in the dark, but an outsider cannot. This forces the intruder to slow down and increases the likelihood of them making a mistake that gives away their position. The management of shadows and floor-level lighting provided a massive visual advantage for the defender. In a time of mandatory blackouts, families learned that a tiny and controlled light source placed at floor level could silhouette an intruder perfectly, while keeping the homeowner in total darkness. They used floor candles or low-wattage lamps shielded by boxes to cast long shadows across the room. If a shadow moved, it was an immediate indicator of a breach. They also practiced the technique of the reverse flash, where they would keep a high-powered flashlight near their bed to temporarily blind an intruder whose eyes had already adjusted to the dark. For a modern application, you should utilize low-profile and motion-sensing nightlights placed near the floor in your hallway. When the light triggers, it won't just alert you, but it will cast the intruder's shadow prominently against the wall, allowing you to identify their movement and distance before they ever see you. The effectiveness of these World War II home defense tricks lies in their absolute reliability and the fact that they turn the intruder's own movements into your greatest security assets. By understanding how to manipulate sound and gravity, you can turn any living space into a high-security environment without relying on the grid. If you found this breakdown of historical tactical defense valuable, subscribe to Atten Recounts right now. Share this guide with your community to ensure these essential skills are never forgotten.